Hello and welcome to another Times Radio Frontline Recap. Now, today I'm looking back at some of the videos that have sort of hit the headlines over the Christmas New Year period. And I've got one interview for you that I want to point you at. But let's get into some of the bits that have caused a little bit of stir over what, for most of the world, was a holiday period. First of all, we get the New Year's briefings. The first one I want to point you out comes from Vladimir Putin himself. Have a look at this here.
Уважаемые граждане России, дорогие друзья, в эти минуты перед наступлением Нового года мы все ощущаем течение времени. Перед нами будущее. И каким оно будет, во многом зависит от нас. Мы рассчитываем на свои силы, на тех, кто рядом, кто нам близок и дорог, и всегда сами готовы подставить плечо. Такая взаимная поддержка дает нам уверенность в том, что все задуманное, наши надежды и планы обязательно исполнятся. Конечно, у каждого из нас они свои, личные, особенные, по-своему неповторимые. Но они неотделимы от судьбы нашей Родины, от искреннего стремления принести ей пользу. Ведь мы вместе народ России. Труд, успехи и достижения каждого из нас слагают новые главы ее тысячелетней истории. А прочность нашего единства определяет суверенитет и безопасность Отечества, его развитие, его будущее. Мы стремимся порадовать, согреть своим вниманием тех, кто нуждается в участии и заботе. И, конечно, словом и делом поддержать наших героев, участников специальной военной операции. Вы взяли на себя ответственность сражаться за родную землю, за правду и справедливость. Миллионы людей по всей России, уверяю вас, вместе с вами в эту новогоднюю ночь. Думают о вас, сопереживают, надеются на вас. Мы едины в искренней, беззаветной, преданной любви к России. Поздравляю всех наших бойцов и командиров с наступающим Новым годом. Верим в вас и нашу победу.
And this is Putin turning around and saying, dear citizens of Russia, dear friends. And he's talking about what's gone on over the last year and trying to stir up nationalism with we rely on ourselves, on those around us and those who are near and dear to us, trying to suggest that there's a wider support there. I think some of his words, he's reaching out to Donald Trump with it. But, he goes on to talk about personal and unique hopes and plans, but talks around the destiny of the motherland and then tries to suggest that that destiny is dictated by where the special military operation is going and refers to his heroes of the special military operation. Putin is suffering in this, and he's trying to find a way of keeping the Russian population on side when they're getting more and more aware of what it is that's actually going on. So an interesting New Year's statement from Putin. We have to see what happens as the new year develops. Next New Year's address I want to point you at is President Zelensky. We have to be balanced and show both sides. Here he is here.
Чого хоче Україна?
What does Ukraine want? Peace. Yes. At any cost? No. We want the end of the war, not the end of Ukraine.
України. Чи втомились ми? Сильно.
Are we tired? Extremely. Does that mean we are ready to surrender? Those who think so are deeply mistaken.
Хто так думає? Мінська ювелірно виписана пастка
Ukraine does not need a Ming-style meticulously drafted trap. Signatures under weak agreements only fuel war. My signature will be under a strong agreement, and that is exactly what every meeting, every call, every decision is about right now.
кожне рішення, щоб забезпечити
To secure a strong peace for everyone. Not for a day, not for a week, not for 2 months. Peace for years. Only then will it truly be a success. For Ukraine, for America, for Europe, and, in truth, for every nation that wants to live, not to fight.
а не воювати.
And we've got Zelensky in his traditional Ukrainian dress shirt in a very fetching bottle green. And he emphasizes a number of points that will be focused not just on the Ukrainian people, because he's trying to set the conditions for them should there be a deal that Donald Trump manages to get Vladimir Putin to sign up to. He's trying to prepare the ground for them, but is also sending his message out to Donald Trump as well. And he starts off with saying, what does Ukraine want? Asking that very formal question. Peace, yes, but the next piece is the important bit. At any cost, no. And he explains that Ukrainian people are tired, but not ready to surrender. He goes on to try and suggest that there is potential for more mistakes. He has got a degree of humility in his speech, and gives quite a statesman-like New Year's speech, especially when you compare it to Vladimir Putin's. His is reaching out for peace. Putin's is trying to justify a continuation of the special military operation. So then we get Donald Trump having a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and Trump is quizzed about what is going on from a number of journalists. Have a look at this here.
Yesterday there was an explosion overnight, and the Russians say that Ukraine tried to hit the residence of President Putin. Do you have any information?
No, I don't know about it, actually, and I don't, I just heard about it, actually, but I don't know about it. No.
Did you speak with
That would be too bad. That would not be good.
What was the outcome of your telephone call with President Putin this
I
morning?
had a very good talk this morning. I waited till this morning because it was pretty late by the time we finished, like 2:30 in Russia, 2:30 in the morning, and we had a very good talk. We spoke at 8 o'clock in the morning hour time, and it was a very productive talk. I mean, we have a few very thorny issues, as you can imagine. He knows about thorny issues probably better than anybody in the world, but it's working out. We have a couple of issues that we're going to get resolved, hopefully, and if we get them resolved, you're going to have peace. You're going to have Ukraine. They're losing 26,000 soldiers a month. Can you believe it? A month, 26,000 young, beautiful soldiers, and plus some people in Kiev, and relatively small, but a lot, still people, and it's a lot of people. But 26,000 soldiers were killed last month. Yeah.
President Trump, are you going to allow Turkish forces, or do you expect Turkish forces to be stationed in Gaza?
Are you worried that the strike, the alleged strike on Putin's residence, could scuttle the peace?
Yeah, I don't like it. It's not good. I heard about it this morning. You know who told me about it? President Putin told me about it. Early in the morning, he said he was attacked. It's no good. It's no good. Don't forget, the Tomahawks. I stopped the Tomahawks. I didn't want that. Because we're talking about, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it. Please. What? Well, it came out, well, we'll find out. I mean, you're saying maybe the attack didn't take place. It's possible too, I guess, but President Putin told me this morning it did.
One question, Mr. President. Can you...
And Donald Trump is talking about his phone call with Vladimir Putin. And he, as it always says, I had a very good talk. He didn't bring any points out because it was very late when he finished it and wanted to wait till the morning. Well, he was trying to think of what to say in reality and to get it out there. Again, he emphasizes the casualties. He says 26,000 young, beautiful soldiers from Kyiv now lost in the last month. Now, I don't know whether he was referring to just Ukrainian soldiers or whether he was referring to Ukrainian and Russian casualties altogether. But he's pushing that off. He's bringing out lots of phrases that are not really answering any of the questions, but it's his stock phrases for wanting to go down through peace, which suggests to me that he got nothing out of Vladimir Putin. He re-emphasized the fact that they're 90, 95% or 96% close to a deal, but it's that last little bit. It could be something that is massive, that is immovable, that he can't get over the line. And so it doesn't matter whether you've got 90% or 80% or 97% of the rest of it agreed. If there is a sticking point that is immovable, it is immovable. So there is no deal. But Donald Trump in this speech, I think, was hedging his bets, if anything. That does not bode well for there being peace. And my personal opinion is Vladimir Putin doesn't want peace, and therefore there will be no chance of a peace deal. Whilst Putin still thinks he's winning on the front line, the Ukrainians, from a tactical perspective, are having some successes in pushing the Russians back, as we've seen. And the Russians still haven't taken Pokrovsk. So we'll see how that goes. And then one other video I want to point you out is an interview that was carried out today, as I'm recording this, with Michael Basurkiv, and this is Michael talking to my colleague Louis here.
Well, Sumy and Kharkiv, those are areas, of course, closer to the Russian border, to Belarus, and Putin has been talking about a buffer zone there for quite some time. They haven't been able to pull it off. I don't know if they can now. But also, Zaporizhzhia is very, very sensitive. It's a big oblast, and of course, it's the site of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And the Russians have had control of that for quite some time. It's also, by the way, a big point in the negotiations. If an agreement were to happen, who would actually control it? The latest version that I saw would basically put that under joint US and Ukrainian control. I don't think that's something the Russians would go for either. But Ukraine really, really needs that power supply back so it can light up Ukrainian cities again. It's hard to say right now, but we do have to also remind people that this is a war that for quite some time, as we've seen, for example, in other theaters of conflict, has transitioned from traditional warfare using tanks and artillery to modern warfare of GPS blocking, of drones, especially drone warfare. And the newly developed Russian drones, I have read, have become very, very advanced. You also have fiber wire drones that are basically immune to interception from electronic means. And that has given the Ukrainians a tough time, even to the point of targeting Ukrainian drone operators as well. Not working in the Ukrainians' advantage is also very little rotation going on the front lines. We just read the other day of a Kiev soldier who spent almost an entire year basically in a foxhole with no rotation, and retired military personnel saying this is unacceptable, that this should not be happening. But that also points to a big problem Ukraine has in terms of fighting age men, either in hiding, having left the country, evading service. I don't mean to get too much on to one side or the other, but just visiting an airport hotel here in Chisinau yesterday, I saw maybe about half a dozen fighting age men with their families, with their Porsches and BMWs outside. I don't know what they were doing there, but the reason I mention this is when other people see that sort of thing happening, they're asked, what are these guys doing here? Why aren't they back home fighting? And it's also a reminder, as are these enormous, enormous corruption scandals. We have not one, but now two now, including one in the national parliament. It's a reminder that this is a war that falls very, very heavily on the shoulders of the middle class and those below them. Well, the upper classes are continuing to evade service and enrich themselves. It's not a very good feeling, a good sight to see.
And meanwhile, while the war continues within Ukraine's borders, President Putin has moved Russia's Oreshnik missiles, which are nuclear-capable missiles, into Belarus. How should Europe and the US, for that matter, read that move?
Yeah, well, the United States has been, under Trump, has been making quite, I would say, impressive moves to reestablish ties with Belarus. We've had prisoner exchanges. We've had really interesting prisoner releases there from Belarus, including some main opposition leaders. So there is progress being made there. But I think this is very cunning Mr. Lukashenko trying to play both sides, keeping Putin on side, but as well as exploring relationships with the United States. I mean, he would be wise to do that because, he probably senses too that being a key ally of Mr. Putin and a declining Russia does not help them in the longer term. But I don't think Belarus slipping into the U.S. orbit is something Mr. Putin is going to allow. And yeah, you're right. He's still basing weapons there. He says they're going to be, or if they haven't already, based nuclear weapons in Belarus. So the world should be on alarm about this. But as I said to my American friend yesterday, for example, what's happening in the Black Sea right now, it seems the world is asleep. With this Russian continuous bombing of port infrastructure, and again, foreign-owned boats with wheat in it. If only the West had dedicated even a portion of the military muscle it dedicated to the Red Sea when that was blockaded to the Black Sea, we would be in a different position right now. Once again, a reminder that this is an international world port, a very, very important component of the world food supply chain. And yet alarm bells are not going off in world capitals. It boggles the mind.
And Michael is talking about the Russians having an aim of trying to take more ground in the Sumy, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhzhia region. Now, this is rhetoric coming out of Moscow. Moscow at the minute, or the Russians at the moment, are suffering. They're barely able to hold some of the ground that they've got. They haven't been able to take Pokrovsk. They have not got the ability to generate sufficient mass to open up a new front in Sumy or to continue with any success in Kharkiv or Zaporizhzhia. They were beginning to have a little bit of success just before winter in Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia, but nothing that the Ukrainians were concerned about. The Russians were pouring all of their capability into Pokrovsk. That's come to nothing so far. Of course, Kupiansk, the Ukrainians have managed to take back somewhere that Vladimir Putin had paraded the general that was in charge of the area, given him a special medal and congratulated him for taking the city. Then Zelensky appears outside and takes a selfie outside the city symbol. That, I think, has embarrassed Putin enormously. And then Michael goes on and talks a little bit about the movement of the Oreshnik nuclear-capable medium-range ballistic missiles into Belarus. Lukashenko and Belarus would love them to be there with nuclear warheads. He's himself said that if he's got a missile with a nuclear warhead, he will use it. Well, it's a Russian missile and he hasn't got the authority to use it, and the Russians are very protective of it. Whether these are nuclear armed or just nuclear capable missiles with conventional warheads, we've seen them used with conventional warheads in the Russian fight into Ukraine, attacking principally civilian targets. The trouble with the Oreshnik is the only time you know what warhead it's carrying is when it goes bang. That's not very good indeed. But the outloading of nuclear warheads is something that the West is watching very closely indeed. So anyway, that's all we have for a quick recap this week. Thank you for watching. Do remember to sign up for Times Radio membership, and then you'll get access to a lot of our interviews early, and you can post your questions or comments for me to answer in the weekly Q&A. And of course, you can get us on your favorite podcast channel. Just search for Times Radio Frontline. Thank you. Goodbye.